Hi, welcome back everyone. Welcome to the second video of this channel. In the previous video, we discussed about some of the most commonly misused words in academic literature. So in this video also we will continue the discussion about words, the most basic, the smallest unit in academic writing, scientific writing. So this time we will discuss 10 specific tips about how to make the words you use more effective. The first tip is about using short words instead of long ones so that your readers have an easier time deciphering whatever message you want to convey to them. We will see a list of words. I will present both the short versions and the longer versions, and you can decide for yourself. If you are reading an article, so which of these versions you will personally prefer. So I would suggest you to use the word use instead of utilize, though in some situations utilize may have a more specific connotation meaning than the word use. For most of the situations it may be easier for the readers if you use the word use. Likewise, you can use start instead of initiate, next instead of subsequent, change instead of alteration, and find instead of ascertain. You got the point. If you use these versions, your language will be simpler and it will be easier for the readers to understand what you are trying to convey. Now, when I say this, some of you may feel that if I use these simpler alternatives, I may not sound very serious. I may not sound like a scientist, things like that. Such reactions are always common whenever I present this particular table in any workshop. So, to all those people who have such doubts, I would like to show you one of the most important, one of the most famous articles ever written in medicine. Watson and Crick presenting the double helix structure of DNA in a letter to the editor published in the journal Nature. Let us see what was their first paragraph. We wish to suggest a structure for the salt of DNA. This structure has novel features which are of considerable biological interest. Now, if you look at these two sentences, you can see that any student of maybe 5th or 6th standard can easily understand what these authors are trying to convey. They are using simpler, shorter words. So you can also do the same thing and get the desired result of making it more easier for the readers. Now, if you agree with this particular principle, I am going to give you some more words of some more word pairs of similar nature. So instead of administer, you can use give, most instead of majority, show instead of demonstrate, end instead of terminate, help instead of facilitate. So in all these situations, you can see that the words in the left side column are much simpler, much smaller, much more easier to understand. That is the point. Now the second tip in this series is about using stronger verbs. One of the most common issue with the scientific writing is that many people, many authors use as the main verb of their sentence various forms of the verb be, is, are, was, were and all. And that way the sentences become less strong. Let me show you one example. Understanding the genetics and neurobiology of a mental illness is critical for developing effective interventions for its prevention and treatment. So the main verb of the sentence I have put in bold, that is. As I told you like just now, is not the best option. You should better look for more stronger verbs when you are writing sentences. Let us see an alternative to this sentence. Before we can prevent or treat a mental illness, we must understand its genetics and neurobiology. I think you got the point I am trying to make. So here the main verbs are prevent, treat and understand, not ease. And also if you compare visually both these boxes, you can see that the sentence has by now even become shorter. And also it is more emphatic. It is more, it will make a stronger impression, it will make a stronger point to the reader. So prefer this version. The next tip is about using the most specific word for the purpose. Many a time people use the first word that comes to their mind. They don't give it much thought. But though it may convey the meaning to like give a more vivid, more detailed picture to your reader, it is better if you go for the most specific word for the meaning that you intend to convey. Again, let me show an example. His BPRS score reduced to 26. Any rating scale score, it reduced to 26. It is fine to use this, but at the same time, if you want to convey to the reader that whatever intervention you did led to an improvement in the patient's condition, so it would have been better if you told like his BPRS score improved to 26. I think you can feel that a subtle difference, but the improved version is better because that gives a more positive message, more emphatic, stronger message to the reader. So like this, always give like a detailed thought to whichever word you are using in your writing. Another example. All the participants had previously handled children with behavioral problems. This is okay. This is okay if you are talking about, say, like bus drivers of children with behavioral problems, or maybe some of the people who serve food to them and all. But if you want to talk about the treating team, somebody who has actually treated children with behavioral problems, though handled, we may use that word in a conversation, it may even convey your meaning to some extent. It is better if you say managed itself. So depending on the purpose, like if you want to convey that these people have the experience of treating such a group of children, it is better to say managed than handled. So like in these two examples, always look for the most specific, most vivid term that will convey to your reader more meaning and more details. So another example I could like to show you here, like all these words are synonyms: showed, demonstrated, disclosed, revealed, and all. But again, like for though they are synonyms, though as thesaurus may say that all of them have same meaning, but there is some subtle difference in the meanings of all this that will be more clear to you when you place them in a sentence. So like when you want to use any of these words in a sentence, you give some conscious thought which of these words will best suit the occasion and use that one only. Don't use any one word simply for the purpose of it. Now I would like to also give you another hint here, another tip here, like though these words have a similar meaning, they sound different. Showed, demonstrated, disclosed, revealed, the sounds are different. So what you can do, whenever you have written a sentence, you read it aloud, or at least you read it in your mind, and also you use the alternative words that I have given you here, and you just see which one sounds better. So like you may feel that in one particular sentence, because depending on the other words that appear in the sentence, demonstrated may sound better than showed. So you use demonstrated in such a situation. So not only the meaning, obviously meaning is important, but also you can give importance when you have more options of words available. You can also consider the sound of the words. Keep terms the same. This is very important. Many authors I have seen making this particular mistake in their articles. It will be clear to you what I am trying to convey. It will be clear to you once I give you some examples. Please read this sentence. Greatest improvement was found in the glycemic control, while the lowest improvement was observed in the BMI values, and the intermediate level of improvement was noticed in waist circumference. So again, like it would have been better if the author used the same word here. There was no need to brainstorm or check a thesaurus and use some synonyms here. If you do this, like to the reader, it may be more difficult. They may feel that there is something, subtle difference is there what was actually seen in the results, but there is nothing. Everything is found only. So there is no need to create unnecessary complication. There is no unnecessary need to like use different words. If it is possible, you use the same word itself so that it is easier on the reader's brain. It is easier for them to understand. Another example. These kind of mistakes are very common. Score 1 indicates strongly disagree, and score 7 reflected strongly agree. The author could have used very easily indicates itself. Again, there is another issue here, two more issues here actually. Here the author says indicates, while here it is said reflected. So the tense changes, present tense and past tense. In another video we will discuss like which tense to use, but at least be consistent in the same sentence. Don't keep changing the tense unnecessarily. Also, this strongly agree, the author has used all small letters, while here S and D are capital. Again, these mistakes people keep making. There is no need for that capitalization there. In the examples we discussed so far, now at least the meaning does not change. The sentence does not become wrong, though the authors have used some synonyms where they would have used the same word. But there are situations where, no, in their attempt to find out different words, the authors actually make the content wrong. They introduce errors into the sentences. We will see some examples. Please read this. So what they are saying here is more than 2/3 of the schizophrenia patients had a family history of psychiatric illness, right? While only a small number of the control group had family pathology. Again, basically what they wanted to convey, if you see their result section, the tables, is that the control group are also, in the control group the family history was less compared to the patient group. But in their attempt to sound vivid or introduce more terms, they used something entirely different and they ended up making a mistake. So this should not happen. They could have told something like only a small number of the control group had such history. So that would have that wouldn't have altered the intended meaning. Use variety if it helps clarity. Just now I told you to keep terms the same, but at the same time, like in some situations, it may be better if you use variety. We will see the examples, then it will be more clear to you. In the case of criminal case, so basically case comes here 2 times. So it is better to rewrite so that this repetition is avoided. The present study emphasizes the need to study. Again, the study word has come here twice. That becomes a bit difficult on your ears. So the need to analyze or the need to assess, something like that, the others would have used. The short-term controlled studies in the US states the prevalence of. Nothing wrong with that, but especially US stands for United States. So after that you again use states, no, it may be a bit jarring, a bit confusing for the reader. So better avoid such usages. You use some synonyms or alternatives, or you rewrite the sentence. Avoid nominalizations. Again, this is another very common error that others make, using a lot of nominalization. Nominalization means basically where you can use a verb, you don't use that, and rather you use the noun form of that particular verb, and that becomes more difficult for the readers. Also the sentences become longer. Your word count increases if you do that. We will see some examples. Please see the highlighted portion here. A conclusion was reached that. So conclusion is the nominalization for the beautiful verb conclude. So you could have said it was concluded that, or we concluded that, things like that. So that way you would have avoided the nominalization. One more example. An investigation was undertaken to examine. So many words. We investigated. Or you can say the effects of vasopressin were investigated, things like that. So when you convert these nominalizations into their corresponding verb forms, it is more clear, and also the word count also you save. Prefer affirmative to negative constructions. Again, it will be clear to you once we discuss an example. 6 children were not present in the school the day the testing took place. Not present, that is a negative construction. You have used not. It would have been better if the author said absent. Again, you saved one word there, and also the meaning is clearer here. So prefer these affirmative constructions instead of these negative constructions where you have to say not separately. Next one. Pay attention to connotations. Connotations means many words have more than one meaning. Usually you are able to make sense depending on the context, depending on the words which are around them. But especially in scientific writing, you have to give a lot of importance to clarity. So it is better if there is any possibility that confusion may be created because of the use of a word because of the fact that it has other meanings also. It is better to avoid using such words, use other synonyms or something. We will see an example. This is an example from a table. Substance use present. So like you may feel that the others are trying to say that this particular number of patients had substance use. Substance use was not absent, it was present. But actually in this particular situation, the others wanted to convey something else. They wanted to convey that presently, not in the past, presently the patients had substance use. Again, like, so the confusion arose. So it would have been better if they used current or something like that. So like it would have been clear, this kind of confusion would not have been there. Parenting behavior is critical when, again there are two meanings here. Parenting behavior is important when, or maybe like parents start becoming very critical, they start criticizing a lot. So that meaning is also there. So again that becomes confusing. The difference was significant in the WhatsApp group. Again they had one Facebook group, one WhatsApp group, so they were comparing people in these two groups. But WhatsApp group as such, we have another like meaning, no? So it would have been better if the authors wrote this in some other way. We assess the burden of domestic violence, like how much how severe, how important domestic violence is. That is what the others meant here. But the burden as such is a technical term, like disability, quality of life, things like that, stress and like that, especially in social work, they have a specific meaning for the word burden, so it may be confusing here. The subject of our study was chosen. What they meant here was the topic of our study was chosen, but like we also have the study subjects, the participants. So again, so all these kind of terms, like it is better like if you avoid, you read it to yourself, or maybe you give it to some of your friends to read. You ask them whether there is any confusion in any of the sentences, and if they point it out, you like use a different word that will not lead to confusion like this. The patient admitted to the fact that, again like especially for doctors and clinicians, whenever you say the patient admitted, like that is an entirely a different meaning. So again like it would have been better if the author used, because whenever this happens, like when when a reader is reading what you have written, the person is entering kind of a trance, like he is with you, he is following you without any hindrance. But when any block like this appears now, that experience is broken, so that you should avoid at any cost. Again, this is a problem that we usually see in case reports, use of the case sheet language. Whatever words you use in your OP card or in your case sheets, now you use that in articles you are submitting to journals. Avoid that. Hours, years, history of Sept for September. All these are fine in your clinical notes, but not in a material that you are trying to get published. Typos. Again, most of you will see now which all words Microsoft Word has underlined for you, and mostly we correct all that. But your spell checker will identify only those words like where the spelling is fully wrong. Suppose you have made an error, but that is the correct spelling of another word. In such situations, it is unlikely that your spell checker will pick that error, and like you may end up, you may like that word will end up in a print if you don't have good editors. But it is better if you yourself like read all your words carefully to ensure that mistakes have not been made. I will show you some interesting examples. Please read this. Some of you may have picked it. The others wanted to say public hospitals, but they ended up saying something not that, maybe uh, yeah, the pubic hospitals of Jhelum. Now you may feel that only rarely this kind of mistakes happen. It is not so. I did a Google search for pubic hospitals, and there are nearly 3,000 results for that particular phrase. So like many people don't like read whatever they have written twice, at least in a very close manner. So you should not do that. Lots of mistakes like this are seen in published material, so don't let it happen to you. Please read this. Yeah, they meant to say high amount of shakes, but ultimately like what they ended up writing is snakes. So yeah, that is what I am trying to convey. Please be careful about mistakes like this. Now in the previous presentation we discussed about some words that are commonly confused in writing. In this video I will add some more to that list. Dependent and dependent. Many a time people confuse between these two, but the second one with a has an entirely different meaning. It is from the British English, and that means basically a person who relies on another as a primary source of income. That is a sort of you are financially dependent on another person. So it is not the usual alcohol dependence, that dependence. This is the version that I gave above, the one with E. But again, people keep making mistakes in this regard. Please see this title of a published article. Alprazolam in a dependent user. So that is a mistake. Rationale and rational. Again, people usually use this in an interchangeable manner, but it is not so. Basically, rational is the adjective, while rationale is the noun. So rational would mean like logical, while rationale means logic. So that way it will be clearer to you. But again, people keep making mistakes. Please see this title of a published article. Tadalafil 5 mg once daily is a rational option. So that is wrong. The author should have said rational. So again, these are the kind of mistakes you should be avoiding. People commonly talk about getting approval from an ethical committee, but it is better to say ethics committee. Ethical committee is not the best term there. Again, people usually mention, especially in their the table 1, where you have to describe the socio-demographic information about your sample. You are supposed to use the word sex, but maybe, as I told earlier, for a variety, or maybe they feel ashamed to use the word sex or something, no, they go for gender. But unless you specifically know what the term gender means, and you know that you are specifically trying to talk about the gender, you don't use that term, you use sex only. Speciality and specialty. Very common error. If you are talking about the medical specialties, pathology, pharmacology, microbiology, use the second version. The I is not there, it is specialty. Again, please read these two. So basically complement, but there are two different spellings. This is L-I, this is L-E. Which one is correct? Actually both are correct. The thing is, the meaning is different in these two contexts. Here Li is the correct spelling, because here you are thanking someone, like as usually happens in the acknowledgement section. The others are thanking the work and dedication of various teams. So here Li is correct, but here it is different. It is used in the meaning of completing, like there are already some laboratory tests are already available, but they would like to complement those tests with in situ investigations. They are trying to add something. So here LE, that is easier to remember if you like use the word I told you now, like complete. It is used in the meaning of complete, where complete has LE. Likewise, here the complement also has the LE spelling. Again, about the capitalization, like there are some words people mistakenly don't use the capitalization. The words are Likert. When you talk about Likert scale, the L has to be capitalized. Also, students t-test. Though like usually S is not capitalized when we write student, but there is a history behind how this came about. We may discuss it in some other slide in the future. But when you are writing students t-test, the S has to be capitalized, because it was used as the name of an author. So that is why it has to be capitalized. Now finally, like those who are from other countries may even stop here. For those who are from India, like there are some terms which are more of Indian English, and if you use them in your articles, people from other countries may not be able to follow that. Now that is especially important, because most of the journals are online, and you expect to have an international audience. So like I will give you some major examples. Guardians brought the patient. Again, you can say the family members or something like that, because usually people write this from the Hindi Guardian. They try to translate that into English and use this, but that is not the best word there. Small, again, that is not used in the English from people from other countries. That again, that came from Indian languages, chote, something like that. When you translate it into English verbatim, you use small. Passed out from college. No, we may occasionally pass out when we have maybe slightly larger amounts of alcohol or something. But otherwise, you just pass from college. It is not to pass out. Discussed with the patient party. Again, that is again we speak about patient party and all, but usually that is not a common usage in English in the Western world. So if you use this again, people may feel that you had some kind of party there or something. Came to the outpatient. Again, we usually say that they came to the OP. That much is okay. But when you use the full form, there came to the outpatient. Again, people may be confused. So you can at least say came to the outpatient department. That makes sense. Otherwise, no, don't use came to the outpatient. Co-brother. Again, people from other countries may not even know what exactly you mean by that. Again, prepone is not there in the formal English. Postpone is there. I think prepone is something we Indians invented for that. Anti-clockwise is again not a proper word. It is actually counterclockwise, but in India we use that term. Crow or lack, all these terms are again Indian terms, which like other readers from other countries may not be able to understand what exactly you mean here. They may be more familiar with million, billion, and things like that. And also the terms related to our education system, metric, 8th standard, 7th standard, board exam, +2, all these terms may not be like understood by people from other countries. So it is better to use alternative terms or explain in the brackets what exactly you mean by that. So that's it in this presentation. Stay tuned. I will try to keep uploading more videos maybe once a week. Those of you who have not subscribed, please do that now so that you get a notification the next time I do the uploading. Till then, stay healthy, stay safe in these COVID times. Thanks for watching.